It's so nice to see you again.
You too, Suzanne. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Here we are. Again, my name is Suzanne Boniford. I am the outgoing VP of Professional Services, and we have Rhonda Polansky here with us. She is the outgoing chair of the Business Management Committee, and we're so excited to have her back today. We are going to talk a little bit more about the articles that she's written for the Communicologist. She's had a multi-series piece published in the Communicologist on some really important reimbursement topics. So if you have not watched part 1 and part 2 of our series, I encourage you to go back and watch those first so you can get up to speed. Right now, we're going to talk about part 3 in her series. And I have just a few questions I'd like to ask you, Rhonda, with your expertise in this area. First, I'd like to know a little bit more about state association involvement. So tell me, can a state association like TISHA negotiate reimbursement rates for member providers?
Yeah, that's a kind of a hot topic question, right? I mean, we all want some type of representation in this area because healthcare obviously is reimbursement has been a huge struggle. But and although state associations certainly can advocate at a government level, the state associations as an organization cannot and do not have the power to negotiate reimbursement rates for any of the member providers. Legal firms really strongly advise against this because it risks violating antitrust laws. So the laws are designed to protect the consumer, and we, the providers, are considered the sellers. So just as the insurance companies are considered the buyers and also the consumers to our services.
Mhm. Understood. I really appreciate that information because, again, we look to TISHA often to support us in these matters, but again, we have to follow and understand the legalities of all this.
Right. And Tisha and a state organization would be really great in helping you collect data and doing those type of things to use for your negotiations and trying for reimbursement, but they can't do the negotiating for you.
Absolutely. So, in that case, what is the first step in negotiating your contract with an insurance payer? I mean, again, this is a very hot topic, and many of our speech language pathologists and audiologists that are in private practice, like yourself, Rhonda, have dealt with this very personally. I'm sure this is near and dear to your
It
heart.
is. It is. It's never fun. I can tell you that. But if you're going to renegotiate, you never initiate that conversation before you actually read and understand the contract that you've already agreed and signed with your insurance provider. So you have to pay very, very close attention to the headers that address things like, when did you sign the contract? What's the date of the contract? What was the duration of the contract? What was your interest rate formula? And if you agreed upon a premium rate, and was it ever frozen at that premium rate? And you have to read and pay special close attention to the notice of non-renewal, including the details of how far in advance do you have to notify the provider if you decide not to renew that agreement. So before you start any negotiations, you really have to understand what your current contract says. And most of the people that I talk to have not can't answer those questions when they're asking me about the contracts, and then I'll say, well, what is your current one? Say, when did you sign it? What are the current rates? And they're like, I don't know. Well, you've really got to pull that out because that's where you've got to start from.
Mhm. Absolutely. That absolutely makes sense. You have to have a solid knowledge of your contract and your information before you can even make those steps forward.
Right.
So regarding codes and renegotiations for codes, what codes can we negotiate and what do we know what's fair when we're asking to renegotiate?
Appreciate it. Yeah, this is quite a lot of detail here. I mean, funding goes hand in hand with quality care these days, you know. I mean, the sad fact is that it's been more than 10 years since there's been an increase in reimbursement rates. You know that and just for any provider in the country. So you know, the AMA just this year has really encouraged Congress to stop that 2.83% cut that we were getting from Medicare, but Capitol Hill failed to do that again. So this is making the fifth straight year in the row that we have gotten cuts. I mean, the very first step to negotiating or identifying the codes that you're using is finding the ones you're most utilized, and that generate about 75% of your revenue from the payers that you are using. You will want to review the current Medicare reimbursement rates because most all insurers these days are below Medicare rates. And, you know, I have a lot of independent practices that I talk with that say, well, I don't take Medicare, so it doesn't affect me. No, it really does because all the insurances base their rates after Medicare. So everyone needs to be concerned with Medicare rates because you're going to use that information to identify the variations in the payers that are offering, whether you can leverage those differences and increase the revenue. Codes that are below Medicare rates are the most appropriate for renegotiation, because you at least want them up there, right, where the Medicare rates are. Um, and that data is really important for you to collect that data prior to your negotiation and in collecting those codes, knowing what is 75% of your revenue, knowing what you're getting reimbursed for, and understand the value of what you're providing and communicating that to the payer as you're negotiating the rates.
Mhm. So what I'm understanding you saying is that we have to be prepared as business owners, speech language pathologists, and audiologists going to our payers for these renegotiations or negotiations of our contract. There's a lot
Yes.
of preparation involved.
It's kind of like a David and Goliath situation, but yeah, you've got to be prepared, but it'll only take one stone to prove your point and your value.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Rhonda, for your time,
Absolutely.
expertise. We've learned so much from you today. And if you have not read part 3 of Rhonda's article in the Communicologist, please go back and take a look if you're wanting more information on this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see you.